Hello, and welcome to today's video. I am so freaking excited because today I get to sit down and talk about one of my favorite genres ever, and that is of course mysteries / thrillers. I know technically those are like two separate genres, but to me they kind of provide the same vibe, so I use them sometimes like interchangeably, and I find that oftentimes people that love thrillers, they also really like mysteries, and the other way around. Today I was looking through my Goodreads and all the books that I've read in the last year, and when I tell you 20 of them are mysteries / thrillers, I knew that I had to make this video and just kind of rate all of them in case you're looking for books to add to your TBR, especially now that it's fall, especially now that we're going into Halloween week and kind of like the colder months of the year. I feel like it's the perfect vibe for spookier kind of books. Some of the books on this list are super popular. Some of them you may have not even heard of ever, so let's get into it. As you can see, I organized these by little categories. We have books that I will never shut up about, and there's a reason for them. It's because they're 5-star reads and I was just like obsessed with the story. I will never forget the plot, and they were just like the most memorable mystery / thrillers that I've ever read. The second category is my favorites / most memorable. Again, this is like really good books that I literally will never stop recommending, but they didn't have that kind of like 5-star or 6-star feel because like maybe like something was missing. Third category is pretty good books depending on the mood and the vibe. So these ones could be really good books if you read them like at the right season and with the right vibe and you're kind of like in the mood for the genre, but otherwise they might not really hit. The next category is books that I did not love but I would recommend. So that could be books that I just personally didn't enjoy, or maybe I liked the whole book but didn't really love the ending, and books kind of like in that. The last category is books that I honestly just wish I hadn't read. I felt like they were kind of a waste of time. I want a refund for buying these books, and life was just better before reading them, so don't recommend those at all. At the bottom I have put pictures of every single mystery / thriller that I've read, so let's get started. First we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This I think is gonna be either in between my favorite / most memorable or books I will never shut up about. This was the book that I've read the fastest out of any book in my entire life. I thought the plot was super fast-paced, super captivating. I also love the format of the book, like the author had included little pictures and graphics and maps and little doodles, and I thought it was like so cool, so freaking interactive. I was obsessed with the whole murder mystery aspect of it, and I did not see the ending coming at all. I also really loved our main character, which is a big thing in rating books pretty highly because sometimes there'll be main characters that are dumb as fuck and they just kind of piss me off, but she was just like such a badass, super smart, super nerdy, figure shit out, and I loved it. Okay, next up we have a book that is by the same author, but this is the reappearance of Rachel Price. I think I'm gonna put it in like pretty good depending on the mood. I had really high expectations because I had just read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by the same author, so I was expecting it to be like just as fast-paced, but it was like a little bit more slow, especially like the first like 20%. I was just like a little bored. I was like, what's going on? And I was maybe thinking of DNFing it, but then the author put in this line. This was like from the main character's perspective. She was like, oh, I was reading this book, nothing fun had happened yet, but I knew something good was coming. It was implied by the title, and that line literally reeled me back in, and then everything got super exciting. So I thought it was a very interesting plot. I read the whole middle section pretty quickly. The ending was like pretty good. I didn't love it like 100%. I don't really know exactly what I thought was wrong with it, but I think this would be either like pretty good depending on the mood or maybe memorable. Like it was pretty memorable, the story was memorable, but we're gonna put it right here. Okay, next we have One by One by Freida McFadden. I went through a Freida McFadden kick and I read a bunch of her books. This one was probably like one of my least favorites. Like I didn't absolutely hate it, I was just kind of like bored. Maybe that's because of me and I had been reading so many thrillers back to back, but I think I'm gonna put this one at didn't love but would recommend. I've heard a lot of other people really loved it. I just have other books of hers and just like other books in general that I've enjoyed a little bit more, so that's gonna go there. Next up we have the Mind series. This is technically 5 different books, 5 different novellas, but you could also just like read them in like one big chunk, and this is for sure gonna be books I will never shut up about. I am obsessed with this whole series. I loved it. I ate it up like beginning to end. It was so fast paced. It was very dark, very twisty, so check trigger warnings. It was very graphic and very hard to read, but the story itself was so fast paced. It follows the story of a girl that is a serial killer, and she's dating an FBI agent who is hunting down that serial killer, and he doesn't know that it's her, and it gets like so freaking complicated. She's trying to hide from him. She's trying to finish her little vengeance thing that she's got going, and I absolutely ate it up. Loved the entire freaking series, all the 5 little novellas. I read them so quick. It was kind of giving like Criminal Minds, and I'm a big Criminal Minds girl, so I loved it. Next up, we have The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This one recently just got announced that it's becoming, I think, a movie or a TV show, and it just released a casting, so I'm really excited to see it. I was very shocked when I read this. I think I'm gonna put it right here. It was just like on the edge of my seat the entire time. Very fast paced. Absolutely loved it. You definitely need to read this, especially now that it's becoming a movie. Like, you have to read the book before it becomes a movie so that you can go watch the movie and see how you like it and see the thoughts. But I ate this one up, and same thing with the sequel. I was very nervous because I thought the sequel was gonna be kind of like boring. It's like, okay, we're already seen the story, like we already know how it ends, like what's gonna happen now. But the sequel also ate. Sometimes I think that I like the sequel more than the first one, but honestly that opinion changes like day to day, so I think they're both really high up on this list. Next up, we have Run on Red. This one you may not have heard of. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about it, but I was in my little thriller kick, and I was just like on this like rabbit hole of trying to find more books to read, and this one actually scared me. I feel like in these thrillers a lot of the times like the main characters will be like kind of like dumb or make questionable choices that lead them in this like situation that they're in. But this one follows the story of 2 college girls, and they're going to this party, and then all of a sudden they notice this big freaking truck is following them, high beams, on the back of their car, and they have no idea who it is or what's going on, and it was so freaking scary. I was at the edge of my seat. I wanted to finish this book, but it was 3 in the morning, and I was like freaked out. I had to go and do a whole check around my house because that's how freaking scared I was. Absolutely loved it. I definitely recommend it, but yeah, it was very scary, very spooky. I was just like stressing. Your girl was stressing. Next up, we have the Natural series. Oh my god, this is another one of those that's like kind of giving Criminal Minds. This is another YA kind of mystery, and it follows these gifted children that have like natural gifted abilities, such as profiling people or memorizing information, memorizing statistics. They each have like their own little abilities, and I absolutely love it. They get hired by the FBI and put in this program, the Naturals program, and they basically work on solving cold cases, but there's like a whole other aspect of it, kind of like a side plot, and it all connects at the end, and it's just like really good. I really want to read the rest of the series as soon as possible. Next up, we have On a Quiet Street. This one is a very special to me because this was a book that got me back into reading. I had literally not read in years, and my sister was like, you should read this book. I read it, 5 stars, please read it, and I became obsessed with it. I literally stayed up till 4 in the morning the night before a flight because I had to finish this book, and I could not bring it with me on the flight because I had no room in my bag. I just needed to finish this. I was obsessed. It also just holds a very special place in my heart because without this, I wouldn't have read any of the other books on this list. This channel that you're watching me on would have never existed. Like, not even a thought. The TikTok, not even a thought. So this is gonna be books that I never shut up about. But realistically speaking, I would probably put it in like this category in terms of like how good it is. It's just like holds a very special place in my heart. So I recommend this to everybody. Next up, we have Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I just read this in a reading vlog recently. I thought it was pretty good. I did not see the twist coming at all. I loved it. I thought it was very spooky, very creepy. Granted, I did read this for a 24-hour readathon, and I had booked this like cabin at this random like small town, so like the vibes are already kind of spooky, you know, reading thrillers not in your own home, not in your own city. I just felt like very like creepy vibes from it, and I could barely sleep, but it was very good. It was very twisty, definitely had like the spooky vibes going, the like eerie little sensations where you're like, oh, gotta check that road, make sure there's no one behind you, sort of thing. And I did not see the twist coming at all. This was very interesting. Please give it a read. I haven't read anything kind of similar to this, so definitely recommend this. Next up, we have The Silent Patient. I feel like when I read this, I rated it a lot higher, but looking back after I read all of these, I don't know if I would still rate it as high. I think right now I would probably put it like pretty good depending on the mood and also depending on what kind of books you like. I felt like this one was not as fast-paced as all the other ones. It did have a good premise. Like the beginning caught my attention like so freaking quick. Like how it starts, it's like, what do you mean like that happened? And I was very interested in figuring out what happened, and that's what kept me hooked. But in terms of like the plot and in terms of like the pacing, it was kind of slow burn. And you know, one thing about me, I don't love slow burns. I'm like, just give me the story, like give me the plot, give me some dialogue, like what's going on. So I think I would put it pretty good depending on the mood, depending on what kind of books you like. I have heard a lot of people really love this, but I've also heard a lot of people really dislike it. I'm kind of like in the middle. It just kind of depends on the day. Okay, next up we have Local Woman Missing. This was another one that I read pretty early on getting into thrillers, so I really enjoyed it at the time. I remember some parts and I remember the big twist at the end. I remember I was very shocked. I remember I did not see it coming, so I think I will put it up pretty good depending on the mood. Honestly, I could also just move it up to here because like it was pretty good. It was pretty fast-paced and the story was pretty good. I think, actually thinking back on it now, I think it does belong here. I think it is one of the more memorable ones from this list. Yes, I'm happy with that. Next up we have The Perfect Sun. This is another Freedom McFadden book and it is so creepy if you like books about like creepy little twisted children. I thought it was very interesting and I was shocked at the ending. I think I would put this either my favorite or here, but I think it would go to my favorite. I remember I read this so fast at an airport. I was just like sitting at the floor of the airport just reading this book. I was addicted and I needed to finish it. So yeah, I think this goes here. Very cute, very creepy, very like spooky kind of vibes, and shocking ending, of course. Okay, next up we have The Teacher. This is quite the controversial one. I don't freaking know. I think I'm gonna put it pretty good depending on the mood. Now the story is not good. Like, okay, the story is good in the sense that it's like a thriller and it's scary and it's spooky and it's twisted. Reading it though, my insides were twisting. I wanted to throw up. I felt sick. I felt ill. Like I did not want to be reading this. It was so freaking gross. Definitely check trigger warnings. It was definitely like a dark, twisted story, and a lot of people gave it a lot of hate for writing a book about this specific topic, but also like it's a thriller. Like the serial killers and all these like creepy, terrible people that these books are written about, like they're not good people. Like they're not gonna make good choices, and as a good person with like a good conscience, obviously it's gonna make you feel terrible reading this, and it's gonna be like, oh, like icky, I don't want to read this. Like what the heck, how can I stop this from happening? Eerie, very creepy. I literally hated reading it, but I had to finish the story. The twist at the end was also very shocking. I was like, what the heck do you mean? It just like kept getting worse and worse. But yeah, pretty good for what it is. I guess I don't know how else to explain it. If you haven't read it, it's kind of hard to explain the feeling. Okay, then we have Ward D. I feel like a lot of people hated this one, but I personally loved it. Ward D takes place in this like psych ward, and this girl goes in and she is basically like an intern, like her first shift or something, and very spooky vibes. Like the patients there obviously all have like their own stuff going on, so it was like super creepy, super spooky. Like she doesn't know anybody also because it's her first shift at this job. So like I was a psych major in school, so I absolutely loved reading about all the different like patients and their like patient files and everything like that. I thought it was really cool. A lot of people didn't like this one as much, but I ate it up. Next up we have The Perfect Marriage. If I could get a refund for paying money to read this book, I would have loved to get one because it belongs right here in the trash can. I literally see reviews of this and I see people recommending it on TikTok, and it literally irks me so much because it's like, did we read the same book? It's one of those where you read the whole thing and the premise is good and the premise is interesting and like the whole like first like 80% of it is good, but then the ending just like sucks and it makes no sense like at all, and it's just kind of like a cheap ending. Like there was so much potential to like think of like a clever plot twist, but the plot twist is just like dumb. And my sister also read it and she thought the same freaking thing. If I had known she was reading it, I would have told her not to read it because it just sucks. But yeah, don't read this. I absolutely hated this one. I don't know. Don't freaking even get me started. Okay, next up we have Never Lie by Frida McFadden. This is one of her more popular books, and it was the first Frida McFadden book that I read. And I guess I wasn't expecting the twist to twist the way that it did. Again, we have like a creepy house, and this couple gets like stuck in this like random house because of a storm, and then they go exploring in the house, and the house belonged to a psychiatrist that's been freaking missing. And the girl main character stumbles upon this secret hidden room in the psychiatrist's house that just has a bunch of little tapes of recorded sessions, and I'm like freaking reading, and I was obsessed with it. It was so creepy, it was so spooky, like all these like troubled patients like all going through their own stuff, and I absolutely love the twist. Ate it up. I think this is also becoming a movie or a TV show or something, I think, so definitely need to read that ASAP. I think I will put on the Never Shut Up about this because again, it was one of my first thrillers and it just holds a very special place in my heart, so definitely read it if you haven't. Okay, next up we have The Boyfriend. This is Frida McFadden's most recent book. I read it like literally a couple days ago during my 24-hour readathon. It was very fucking spooky for sure, but I think it was pretty good. I would put it probably right here or pretty good depending on the mood. I haven't had enough time to like sit on it, and I don't know for sure how memorable it's gonna end up being down the line because I literally just read it, but I thought it was really fast-paced, really creepy. Again, the twist was definitely twisting. I had no idea what I was expecting, but it literally was not this. I did feel like the ending was a little bit rushed, and I literally want a freaking novella to follow that up, because like, what do you mean it's just you're gonna drop that bomb like that and then leave and then end the book? Like, what? So I feel like this book definitely needs either like a sequel or a novella or some sort of like author's note, because like what happened. So definitely enjoyed it. I did think it was very fast-paced, very creepy, and you know, it was one of those books where it's like dumb main character that should have definitely used a little bit more of the critical thinking skills. A lot of problems could have been avoided, but you know, it's very entertaining to read. Like Frida McFadden, it's not like all the craziest like plot you've ever thought of, and a lot of it is kind of like, oh, this is super convenient for the plot and da-da-da, but like I still eat it up every time. It's kind of like reality TV. Like, it's not good, but it's like so good, and you just want to like read it, and you want to like find out what happens and like what the choices that these people make, like how they're gonna get to the end from that. So very interesting. I do recommend, but like don't expect it to be like crazy good. Like, it's good, but like, is it good? You know what I mean? Okay, next up we have Ask for Andrea. Oh my god, this one was a book that I read right after Run on Red. It's by the same author, I forget her name, but it was so creepy because I did not read the premise. I only read her last book, and I was like, wow, I need to read every single book that this author has ever written. So then I just started reading Ask for Andrea with literally no expectations, nothing going on in the back. So imagine my shock when in the very first chapter somebody dies, like her main character just dies, and I was like, what do you mean? Like, we haven't even met this person yet. Like, how is it a murder mystery if you're just gonna like kill them off in the first two sentences? Like, what? But it basically follows the story of these 3 ghosts that have all been killed by the same person, and they're all just trying to navigate the shock of just like dying, like getting killed unexpectedly. And it was so trippy, and it had me thinking about like the afterlife, and it had me thinking of like what I would do. It was just like such an eerie, creepy feeling. I don't recommend it, but I do. So I think this will go definitely the most memorable because it was very memorable. My shock was very memorable, and yeah, I feel like I forget the plot of a lot of books. This one I feel like is gonna stick with me and literally so freaking long, so just definitely staying here. Okay, and then last up on this list we have The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I feel like this is one of her more popular ones, well-loved ones. Me personally, I think I will put it at pretty good depending on the mood. Like, it was pretty good. Did I enjoy it? Yes. It was just like kind of frustrating because the main character was literally just like so dumb. It's like, girl, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, get your shit together. But it was very interesting to read. Again, very like popcorn type of thriller. I was eating it up. It wasn't like crazy scary or anything like that. It wasn't life-changing, but it was pretty good. Like, for spooky season, it was pretty good. So I think this is my final list. This is the ratings of all the thrillers that I've read this year. I really hope that you will give some of these top ones a chance if you haven't already. And if you have more suggestions, definitely let me know. I also have a bunch that I'm planning to read this like little spooky season and going to winter. Like I absolutely love reading thrillers in the winter. I definitely need to make a part 2 to this and just go through and add all the new thrillers that I read. I feel like a lot of these are very beginner friendly, especially if you're just getting into thrillers and you haven't read a lot of them. They're very popular and everything like that. But now that I'm kind of learning more of my style and what I like in thrillers, I'm definitely gonna be exploring and finding some new thrillers to read and adding them to this list. So stay tuned for the part 2, I guess, to this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to drop a like on this video if you haven't already, and please subscribe. It helps me out a ton. I literally just made this channel a few months ago, and I most of the time will get more views on a video than I have subscribers. So you are in a position right now where this channel is so small, where you actually subscribing can make a difference in terms of my channel and my channel growth. Because if everybody that watches video subscribe, my channel will probably like double in size. So please subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate it. I post on this channel book related content, reading vlogs, book recommendations, book hauls, book shopping vlogs, and everything like that 1 to 3 times a week. So definitely subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. And that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.